Hello and welcome back to our van build series. We've been converting our 2019 Ford Transit cargo van into a tiny home on wheels and doing some traveling over the last several months. Last week I shared the process of making some low-budget, no-sew, insulated window covers for the back of our van. If you haven't seen that yet, you may want to go check it out before watching today's video. Today I'm going to share how I use a similar method to create a cover for our windshield. Definitely a bigger undertaking, but we think it turned out pretty well. Follow along and see what you think. And don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. Hopefully I can just push this up in and trace the edges and then transfer it to the cardboard I have. I started this project by creating paper templates for the contour of the edges of the windshield. I had a cardboard piece that was approximately the same width as our windshield. I laid out the first edge piece I had just created, traced it onto the cardboard, and started cutting. Let's see. I took the cardboard into the van for a test fit. As you can see, the cardboard I used was not the full height of the windshield, but it was the biggest piece I had. If you try this project, I highly recommend starting with a piece that's large enough to fit the whole windshield. Next, I started creating paper templates to fit around the rear view mirror section. With how the windshield curves, it's tough to get a good, clean template, but I'm hoping this will suffice. Once I had at least a workable template, I started measuring and calculating the width for the Reflectix pieces so they'd be evenly spaced. I calculated the sizes for the Reflectix pieces by measuring the overall width of the windshield, then marking out potential options for widths on the cardboard until I got something I thought worked well. I started at the center, accounting for the width of the gaps that would be between each panel. Not wanting to waste any of the Reflectix, I calculated how to do panel sizes that utilized the full width of the roll. I ended up doing 7 and 8 inch pieces, the exception being the outside edges, which would be smaller and oddly shaped due to the curve of the windshield. Trying to cut between the bubbles so I preserve them as much as possible. I worked on cutting out all the Reflectix strips. Let's see if it works. Ready for it? My favorite line. Voila! I need a new line. Any suggestions? If you've watched our other van build videos, you'll know that I tend to say voila quite a bit. So that's pretty good, but then we also need an inch for that edging. So it would be like this. So I cut this piece out of a cereal box, and what I'm going to do is tape this to the bigger cardboard so when I take it out I have a better template for cutting the material. So I'm going to tape this on here, and then I'll do the next piece and kind of finish the edges. So I'll feel more confident about doing my material. I was trying to figure out the curve, and then I realized this fit actually underneath and I could just trace it. It makes things a little bit easier. So now I just have to cut it out. Ready? Voila! I had constant struggles with my template. In hindsight, I should have just started all over with a piece large enough to fit the whole windshield, or just left it alone. But I didn't, and it was a bit of a train wreck. I laid out my horrendous excuse for a template onto the material and started marking the edges. For this window covering, I'm using tablecloth material from Walmart with an old sheet for an extra layer. You can learn more about this in last week's video. I worked on cutting the material to size, pinned it together, and clipped it to the cardboard template. Then I put it in the window to make sure it actually fit right. The large size and shape of the window definitely makes this project more difficult compared to the rest of the windows in the van. It seemed to fit pretty well.
What you doing?
I'm ironing the material for the window covers and watching old Avon and Beck videos. In our workshop living room. I realize it's easier to work with these to start if they're ironed now instead of later. So I'm cutting out the piece of material for the back side of this window cover. I'm using fabric tablecloth from Walmart. That's polyester. So far I've found that it's pretty easy to work with. So I'm using this silver gray color on the back and black on the other side. So we can flip it whichever way we want. Black at night, maybe out, and then the lighter color maybe during the day. So what I've done is I'm taking the black part in the sheet that I cut out last, and I'm just clipping it in place on the silver gray tablecloth. So then when I go to cut it, it'll stay in place. So then I'll just clip over here. This is a little messy. I left extra edge. I figured it's better actually to leave a little extra and then trim it when I'm done. So I ended up leaving extra. And that's it, then I'll cut it. See how it tends to cut like go to the left? Shoot. I don't know how to, see what happens? I don't know what to do. I think it cut too far to the left. I have such a hard time, cut this side. It's easier when I'm cutting this way. I'm just going to cut extra and then trim it later. So obviously what I'm doing is not rocket science. I am not a seamstress. But so far my window covers have worked anyway. This material's not easy to cut. You know what I think some seamstresses do is pin it. Maybe I'll pin it. I do have straighter pins somewhere. Yeah, it doesn't need to be exact because we finished the edges of this. So it'll go around and cover. So I had to start all over again. The first time I cut over here, I realized the material kind of shifted funky and I didn't cut it right. This material's a little hard to work with. So I got smarter. I got 2 tables where I could lay it all out flat. Then I pinned it all first and even clamped it to the table. And now I'm going to cut it again. And hope for the best. And I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna try to crank this thing out today. We'll see if that happens. And I'm gonna cut it wider this time so there's more play as I work with it. And then trim it later. So just like with the smaller window covers I did, I'm using Stitch Witchery and I'm putting it between the black tablecloth and the sheet that I have for extra layer. Fold down the sheet. I'm pressing the Reflectix all the way up to the edge of the last Stitch Witchery I did. And now I'm going to make sure that the black material is held together. So I'm just fusing the Stitch Witchery, the two pieces of material together. Okay. So then this should see how it's now stuck together. And it didn't quite, I didn't do down there, so I'll just do that yet. And got a little bumpy there, but that doesn't matter since this is the inside. Alright, so then I put the Reflectix all the way up to the last seam, for lack of a better term. And I have to cut out a new piece of Stitch Witchery. So again, I try to push this Reflectix up as far as it'll go against the other. And then I line up the Stitch Witchery. Put the material back down. And what I do is when I fuse it with the iron, I try to push the material, like pull it kind of tight. Start at this end. You want to pull it tight so it's not bunched up later. I go over it kind of once, and then I'll go back over it again. So now I'll do the whole thing. You're supposed to do it for at least 10 seconds per section. And hopefully this will look good when I'm done. And you can see here the last section. So then when this is done, it creates a place to fold. I didn't get footage doing the first piece of Stitch Witchery, so I just want to go back and show you now that I started in the very center of the cover. Here's the center. I did a piece of Stitch Witchery exactly in the center. Then I inserted the Reflectix, and then as I showed in the last step, then I put the next piece of Stitch Witchery on and went from there. So I worked my way from the center out. So I did this piece first, then this one, and then so on until the outside. So I have the majority of the window cover finished right now. I have the material all cut out and the Reflectix inserted. Now I just have to try to figure out exactly where the edges need to go so it's going to fit nicely. So I have the material propped up with the original cardboard template, and as you'll see I have a sneaker and other random items holding it in place. Here it is in place in the front. You can see how Some of the edges are maybe a little short, like this spot right here, but I think the edging will cover that, it's okay. But it's really hard to figure out where exactly to do the edging. So I'm going to have to try to mark the material from the inside as best as possible. So I've clipped the top to help me know where the actual top needs to be. This is a lot of trial and error, I think. Marking the bottom is going to be really hard to figure out where exactly the bottom is.
But I think this is a game of horseshoes, and if you get close enough, it counts.
Let's see. Alright, so I'm going to pin the edging on and see if I can get it to work. I worked on pinning the edging to the top and sides of the cover. My head makes a handy tool. I'm also afraid I'm going to prick myself. Alright, so if I pin that there, cutting these cardboard strips to go in as extra reinforcement because the whole piece was so floppy. It was really hard to figure out how it fit well, and I think this will be good extra support and extra insulation. These cardboard strips will give the cover rigidity to help while finishing it and for keeping it placed well in use. We debated whether or not using cardboard was a good idea here in case it gets bent or wet, but decided it was worth a try. We had looked into corrugated plastic, and that would have been pretty expensive. The whole point with these window covers was to save some money. So it's going between the sheet and the Reflectix. And that's it. So now there's this extra support. So now it doesn't flop all over as much. So I ended up cutting out 4 cardboard pieces. I put them in these 2 panels here to give more support, and these 2 panels. So I left the outside pieces flimsy to kind of fit in the edge of the windshield, and I also left the middle 2 more flimsy to make it easier to get this in around the rearview mirror section. So we'll see how this goes. The last time I tried this, it was kind of a fail. I couldn't figure out what to do because it was so flexible. So now with these cardboard panels that I put in, I'm hoping that I can put this up in here and be able to mark the top parts. Hopefully this is all going to fit right. Do you want to go look at it from the outside? See how it looks from out there? Alright, so what I'm most concerned about right now is getting the top part to fit right. The top and the sides, and then when that's done, then worry about the bottom. Once I felt confident about the placement of the edging along the top, I started gluing it into place. Gotta find a balance between not too much and enough, because you don't want it to bubble out. So this is the section where I started the ribbon, the edging, because I knew it was going to kind of be a weird meeting point, or like a weird spot if I was doing a continuous piece. So because of the nature of the edging, how it ends here, I had to do kind of like a spacer or whatever. So I cut a smaller piece of the edging, and I'm going to glue that down, and then I'm going to glue down each side of the ribbon that comes along, like so. As you can see, binder clips come in really handy for holding things together and in place. Once again, I got to be careful not to push too hard or the glue oozes out. Alright, so that should hold there for now. Before I do that, I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. So it's a little long, this side of it. I could cut it, but I think since it's black, it's actually okay. Do you think it looks okay? But it's kind of a tab kind of further down because here's the end pieces and then that comes down. Alright, so I'm going to just go for it. Try to do a little bit at a time. I guess I'll finish here. And this will keep the material kind of secure in there where it's starting to fray. And you can see I already did this side of the edging. Just have to finish a little bit here, but for the most part. So now I'm going to finish this side here. To make sure the ends of the edges don't fray, just use a lighter and kind of melt the end so it won't fray. So I do that at both ends. That's how I kind of finish it. Hold on. Gotta try to trim it so it's straight. And you do like so. And then I kind of feel this to make sure that it's not got any loose stuff, and that's it. It's good to go. So after many test fittings and many readjustments, I'm hoping I have this done finally, the last fitting. I put this in the window and readjusted. It seemed like it was a little bit too long. So then I have tightened this up a little bit and rolled the material and moved this edging so it's a little bit shorter overall. And I pinned and clipped this bottom edge all along the bottom of this whole thing. It's the last thing that needs to be done. So tomorrow when I have more daylight, I will put this back in the window and hopefully it'll fit nicely, and then I just have to hot glue this last bottom edge. And then we'll have a window cover. Great. What do you think, huh? What do you think? How's the window cover look, huh? She doesn't care. Hopefully this is it. Yes. Success. Finally, this is taking forever. All that was left was to hot glue the bottom edge. So I kind of do it like in the center, and then after I do all that, I come back and I do the very edge, and I'm careful not to do too much or else it gets kind of all over the place. Sometimes I'm not careful enough.
She has not forgotten her spirit lives on. With all the great vibes and energy created in her, she has lots of love to pass on to her new owner.
Working on the window covers and watching old F&A Vanlife.
So we're going to put everything in the van, because obviously the van is just a big empty U-Haul, basically, right now. That's all.
So it's the moment of truth, guys. I have been working on these window covers for months now. Not because it should have taken months, but because I guess they were just lower priority in the scheme of other things. Kind of working on it piecemeal, a little bit here and there. So first, before I see how it fits, we're going to take down this temporary piece that we had. To make this, I used cardboard to make a template, so that's what this piece is. And then we had it so much longer than we anticipated, we decided to paint it black so it wouldn't be as tacky or junky looking with the cardboard. color. So we're going to take this out. And it's amazing how well that worked, even just that temporary piece. So we're pretty confident that having these window covers will make a huge difference in temperature control. And then it's also really nice just for extra privacy. So I tried to do these so they fit as snug, this piece is so it fits as snug as possible. It's not perfect, but I think it'll do the job. It's a little tough because it's a little bit tighter at the front, so it kind of tuck it down in there, tuck it in. And then a lot of people make these, but they're really flimsy, and you have to use like a tension rod or something to hold it up. But we decided to put pieces of cardboard in, which gives it a little bit more firmness, and it holds it in place so we don't need a tension rod. So with the cardboard and the visors, I think it works pretty well. So, and we could put something in here to push it up more snug, but I think this will be fine. So you ready to check it out, see how it fits? Let's go around to the front of the van. So here it is. As you'll see, it's not perfect. It ended up being a little bit narrower than I would have liked, but it still keeps the sun out. And it fits pretty well. See, it's hard here to tuck it in because of the design at the front. But I think it'll do the job. So there's the front windshield. And then we also have the back pieces that I did. And here are the back covers, the first ones I did. And I think they've turned out pretty well. Same concept as the front, except for they fold horizontally instead of vertically like the front.
Thanks for watching another one of our episodes. We still have a few more window covers to make, so we'd love to hear from you if you have any feedback or recommendations. If you found the video helpful, please let us know and click the like button. If you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe. Each subscription helps us out and we really appreciate it. See you next time!